The NBA says it wants to eliminate tanking, but what it's really trying to control is influence. Because tanking was never just about losing games, it was about who controls the future. Front offices manipulating outcomes, players caught in between, and a draft system that quietly rewards the right kind of failure. Now the league has three new anti-tanking proposals on the table, and on the surface, they all aim to fix the same problem. But once you break them down, they're solving very different versions of it, and one of them might actually make things worse. Context tanking has always lived in the NBA's gray area. Teams don't say it out loud, but when a franchise shifts minutes away from veterans, prioritizes development over wins, and subtly lowers its competitive ceiling, you can see it. The league already flattened lottery odds in 2019 to discourage outright losing. But now, with multiple stacked draft classes, 2023, 2025, and potentially 2026, the incentive to lose has returned. So the NBA is stepping in again. Three proposals, three different systems. One goal, reduce the reward of losing. But how they go about it, that's where things get complicated. Core breakdown. What most people think. Let's start with the surface level reaction. Proposal 1 expands the lottery to 18 teams, the bottom 10 non-playoff teams plus all 8 play-in teams. Everyone gets a shot with flattened odds at the bottom and smaller shares for the play-in group. Simple idea. Widen the pool, reduce incentives to bottom out. Proposal 2 goes even further. A 22-team lottery that includes first-round playoff exits, and instead of one season determining odds, it uses a 2-year record with a win floor. The logic here is clear. Eliminate short-term tanking. You can't just be bad for 1 year and cash in. Proposal 3 introduces a double lottery. First, draw for the top 5 picks among 18 teams. Then run a second lottery for the remaining spots, with protections to prevent the worst teams from falling too far. At first glance, all three seem proactive. Creative, even. But that's the surface. Deeper analysis. What's actually happening? These proposals aren't just about discouraging tanking. They're about redistributing control. Start with Proposal 1. By including play-in teams, the NBA is subtly shifting incentives. Teams that used to push for the 10th seed now have to weigh something different. Is it better to chase a low-percentage playoff path or a lottery ticket? That creates tension in decision-making. Coaches want wins. Front offices might see long-term value elsewhere. That's not eliminating tanking. That's relocating it. Higher up the standings. Now Proposal 2. This is where things get aggressive. By including playoff teams and averaging records over 2 seasons, the league is trying to remove volatility. No more one-year collapses for draft positioning. But here's the problem. You're now giving competent organizations access to elite talent. A team that wins 48 games 1 year, drops to 42 the next, and loses in the first round could be in the same lottery ecosystem as a rebuilding team. That's not parity, that's leverage consolidation. And Proposal 3? It tries to balance fairness and randomness. Protect the worst teams, but still inject uncertainty. But the double lottery introduces instability in outcomes. A bad team can still fall. A mid-tier team can still jump. So instead of controlling tanking behavior, you're amplifying variance. Hidden factor, what everyone's missing. Here's the shift that changes everything. Tanking isn't just about losing. It's about alignment. When a team tanks effectively, it's because ownership, front office, coaching staff, and player development are all aligned around a timeline. These proposals don't address alignment. They disrupt it. Proposal 2 especially breaks alignment by stretching evaluation across 2 seasons. Now, front offices are managing optics over multiple years, not just building a roster. Proposal 3 creates uncertainty that affects player development. If outcomes are too random, long-term planning becomes less stable. And Proposal 1, it quietly pressures mid-tier teams into indecision, neither fully competing nor fully rebuilding. The league is trying to fix behavior, but it's interfering with structure. Turning point. The real decision that matters. The most critical decision here isn't how many teams are in the lottery. It's whether good teams should ever have access to elite draft odds. That's the line. And Proposal 2 crosses it. The moment you allow playoff caliber teams into the lottery, even with low odds, you open a door that changes competitive balance. Because elite organizations don't need high odds, they need access. Give them even a small chance at a top pick, and you risk extending dynasties instead of creating new ones. That's the turning point in this entire discussion. Big picture, where this is going. The NBA is chasing parity, and to its credit, recent years have delivered. Multiple champions, shifting power structures, new stars emerging. But these proposals reveal something deeper. The league doesn't fully trust its own ecosystem. Instead of letting team building cycles play out, it's trying to engineer outcomes. Proposal 1 preserves the current system while tweaking incentives. It's controlled, understandable, and limits unintended consequences. Proposal 2 overcorrects. It tries to eliminate tanking entirely, but risks empowering already strong teams. Proposal 3 experiments with randomness, but at the cost of stability. And in a league driven by stars, stability matters, development matters, timing matters. If you disrupt those, you're not fixing tanking, you're reshaping how teams operate at a fundamental level. Conclusion. The NBA wants to reduce tanking, but what it really needs to decide is this. Should losing be punished, or should smart rebuilding still be rewarded? Because there's a difference. Proposal 1 understands that balance. It limits incentives without breaking the system. Proposal 2 ignores it and risks tilting power toward teams that already know how to win. Proposal 3 complicates it, adding randomness where structure is needed. In the end, this isn't about ping-pong balls or percentages. It's about who gets to control the future of the league. And the moment you let the wrong teams into that conversation, you don't just reduce tanking, you redefine competition itself. The NBA isn't trying to fix tanking anymore. It's trying to erase it. Because what's coming next could change how teams lose, how they rebuild, and who actually gets rewarded for it. Right now, 3 different anti-tanking proposals are on the table, and none of them are small tweaks. These are system-level changes, the kind that could flip incentives overnight. Let's start with the first one. Proposal 1 sounds simple. Maybe too simple. Expand the draft lottery to 18 teams. That means the bottom 10 teams plus the 8 play-in teams all get a shot. Everyone gets flattened odds at the bottom, 8% each, and the rest trickles down through the play-in teams. On the surface, it's clean, easy to understand, and most importantly, it keeps real playoff teams out. But here's the catch. You're suddenly giving borderline competitive teams that were trying to win, a real shot at jumping into the top of the draft. That changes behavior. Teams might stop pushing late in the season, not to tank, but to hover. That gray area? That's where this gets tricky. Now, Proposal 2, that's where things get messy. This one expands the lottery to 22 teams. Not just the bottom and play-in teams, but even first-round playoff losers. And it doesn't stop there. Instead of judging teams on one season, it combines 2, a rolling 2-year evaluation, with a minimum win floor baked in. Miss that floor? Doesn't matter. You get bumped up artificially. This is where the tension spikes, because a good team that had won one bad playoff series, maybe due to injuries, could sneak into the lottery. Imagine a deep, well-built contender suddenly landing a top pick. That's not balance. That's gasoline on a fire. And for fans, it's a nightmare to follow. 2-year averages, win floors, conditional adjustments. This isn't just complicated, it feels engineered. Then there's Proposal 3, the double lottery. Same 18 teams as Proposal 1, but now everything splits in 2. First drawing, top 5 picks. The worst 5 teams all get equal odds, no advantage for being the absolute worst. Second drawing, the remaining 13 teams reshuffle for the rest of the draft, and there's a safety net, sort of. If a bottom 5 team misses the top 5, they can't fall past 10th. Sounds fair, right? Not exactly, because now the worst team in the league could end up picking 10th. That's a massive drop, and it changes everything. You're no longer just discouraging tanking, you're risking punishing teams that are just bad. That's the turning point. This isn't really about stopping tanking anymore. It's about redefining what losing even means. If the worst teams aren't guaranteed real help, what's the path out? Development? Free agency? Hope? Because the system used to promise something simple. Struggle now, rebuild later. Now that promise feels shaky, and that's where Proposal 1 separates itself. It's not perfect, but it doesn't overreach. It keeps elite teams out. It stays readable. It adjusts incentives without breaking the structure. The other 2, they flirt with chaos. Because once you let good teams into the lottery or make outcomes this unpredictable, you're not just fighting tanking. You're gambling with competitive balance. And the NBA has to decide, do you want to discourage losing or risk rewarding the wrong teams entirely? Because whatever they choose in May, teams are already watching and they're already adjusting.